There are moments in life where your emotions feel like they're sitting right at the surface, just waiting to spill over. Someone says something disrespectful, a situation doesn't go the way you hoped. You feel misunderstood, dismissed, or provoked, and before you even realize it, you react quickly, impulsively, emotionally. But here's the truth: the most powerful person in the room is rarely the loudest. It's the one who has learned to pause, the one who does not react on impulse, the one who understands that emotional control is not about suppression, it's about choice. Today, we're going to explore the power of not reacting and how to control your emotions in ways that protect your peace, your dignity, and your energy. The pause is power. Not the pause that comes from holding back because you're scared, but the pause that comes from strength. The pause that says, I don't move just because something pushed me. I move when I decide. That's a different kind of control. That's a different level of self-mastery. Most people never even get close to that because the world teaches us to react fast. Prove yourself, defend yourself, clap back. Show them you're not weak. But when you really start understanding who you are and what you're trying to build, you realize reacting is easy. Anybody can react. The real flex is choosing your response. Picture that moment when something touches a nerve. You feel it instantly. It's like heat rising in your chest. Your jaw tightens. Your heart speeds up. It's your emotions trying to take the wheel. That's the crossroads right there. That's the split second that decides whether you stay in control or you hand your power away like loose change. And in that exact moment, that's where the pause lies. That single breath, that quiet beat in the middle of chaos, that is your power. The pause doesn't mean you don't feel the emotion. You do. You feel all of it: the anger, the frustration, the hurt. But instead of letting it run wild, you hold it. You witness it. You give yourself space to understand it. Because when you respond the moment you feel emotional pressure, you're not responding, you're reacting. And reactions come from survival mode, not wisdom. They come from the past, not the present. Say you get a message that's disrespectful, a comment, a tone, a dismissal, the old version of you would have gone straight into battle. Fingers typing fast, voice raised, heart pounding. But think about what happens in that moment. You're letting someone else control the direction of your energy. They pull the trigger and you fire. But the version of you that's growing, evolving, building something real, that version pauses. That version says, let me see this clearly. Let me understand if this even deserves a piece of my peace. Because most of the time, the situation isn't even worth the emotional cost. When you pause, you create space. And in that space is clarity. It's like going from standing in the middle of a storm to stepping into a quiet hallway where you can finally hear yourself think. The situation doesn't change. The people involved don't change. But you change, your position changes, you're no longer reacting from instinct. You're responding from intention. That pause may be one deep inhale. It may be you stepping outside. It may be you saying, I'll respond later. That doesn't mean you're weak. That doesn't mean someone got the best of you. It means you respect your energy enough not to waste it. It means you're choosing to act based on your values, not your emotions in their loudest moment. And here's the thing: the world respects the person who is not easily moved, even the ones who try to provoke you, because emotional control reads as strength. It reads as depth. It shows that you've done your internal work. Anyone can throw words. Anyone can get loud. But not everyone can stay grounded. The pause is how you protect your future from the impulses of the moment. How many relationships have been damaged because someone reacted too fast? How many opportunities have been lost? How many apologies have had to be given after the fire burned out? The pause prevents you from burning down everything around you just because something inside you felt hot. This isn't about being silent. This isn't about swallowing your feelings. This is about choosing a response that reflects your growth. It's about asking yourself, who do I want to be in this moment? Because that's what emotional control really is: identity. You decide what kind of person you are by how you behave when your emotions are loud. So the next time you feel that heat rising, don't rush. Don't move quick. Breathe. Step back. Hold your power. Let your mind catch up with your feelings. Because the pause isn't absence of action, it's the preparation for the right action. And the right action is what builds your life, not just your moment. Not reacting doesn't mean you don't care. People will try to convince you otherwise. They'll say, "Why didn't you say something?" Or "You should have defended yourself," or "You're just letting that slide." But what they don't understand is that silence can be strategy, silence can be strength. Silence can be the sign that you know exactly who you are, and you don't need to prove it every time someone tests you. See, we were conditioned to think that if we don't respond immediately, we're weak. That if we stay calm, we're passive. That if we don't argue back, we're scared. But that's the mindset of someone who hasn't learned how energy works. The truth is, reacting just to react is how you drain yourself. That's how you give pieces of your peace to people who haven't earned that level of access to you. You don't always have to show your emotional cards. You don't have to let the world see the buttons they can push to move you. Because once people know what triggers you, they will use it intentionally or not. They'll poke that spot again and again just to see if they can get the same reaction. But when you decide to stay centered, when you decide to hold your ground calmly, that's when things start to shift. Think about a person who knows who they are. They don't need to shout it. They don't need to argue it. Their presence says more than their voice ever could. When you stop reacting, you start communicating differently. You move from emotion to intention. You move from proving your value to embodying it, because when your worth comes from within, outside noise doesn't shake you anymore. Not reacting isn't numbness. It's not coldness. It's not disconnect. You still feel everything, every sting, every disappointment, every disrespect. But you choose where your energy goes. That is love for yourself. That is maturity. That is discipline. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from reacting, because reaction is how cycles repeat. You yell, you defend, they attack, you explain, they ignore. The situation stays the same because the emotional energy feeding it never changes. When you don't react, you interrupt that cycle. You stop feeding it. And anything you stop feeding will eventually lose its power. You ever notice that the moments we regret the most are usually the ones where we reacted without thinking? Where our pride spoke louder than our peace, where we let temporary emotion create permanent consequences. That's why not reacting is a form of wisdom. It gives you time to see clearly, to choose a response that aligns with your highest self, not your wounded self. Sometimes the reason a situation feels so urgent is because the emotions are loud. But emotions are waves. They rise, they peak, they fall. If you just hold still long enough, that wave settles, and what felt like an emergency becomes something you can understand, handle, or just release. Most of the problems we react to don't even deserve our energy once the wave settles. And let's talk about ego for a moment. A lot of reactions come from ego, the part of us that wants to be right, to be seen, to win, to make sure no one thinks they got over on us. But ego is loud and fragile. It wants attention. It wants to be validated by others. When you don't react, you starve the ego and strengthen the soul. The soul doesn't need validation. The soul knows. So not reacting is really about choosing soul over ego, peace over pride, growth over chaos. And yes, some people will misunderstand your silence. They'll think you don't notice. They'll think you don't care. They'll think they got away with something. But what they don't know is that your silence was not for them. It was for you. It was for your future. It was for your emotional longevity. It was for your mental clarity. Not reacting is an internal reminder. I don't move just because someone wants me to move. I move with purpose. You care deeply, but you care more about your peace than the need to prove something in a moment. And that is power they cannot touch. Emotional reactivity gives your power away. It puts your feelings, your stability, your peace in the hands of whoever or whatever triggered you. And once someone realizes they can get a reaction out of you, they learn your switches. They learn exactly how to pull you off center. That's why reacting isn't just emotional, it's strategic. The moment you explode, the moment you get loud, the moment you start defending yourself out of anger, you're no longer in control. You're being controlled. Think about it like this. When something or someone can make you instantly tense, instantly angry, instantly insecure, instantly offended, It means they have influence over your emotional state. And if they can influence your emotional state, they can influence your decisions. Your decisions become impulsive, not intentional, and impulsive decisions are expensive. They cost relationships, opportunities, reputations, and peace. That's the real price of emotional reactivity. It's not just about the moment, it's about what that moment affects afterward. A person who knows how to trigger you is a person who knows how to control you. They can get you to say things you don't mean, do things you'll regret, or show sides of yourself you've worked hard to outgrow. This is why emotional discipline is power, not because you're trying to look strong, but because you refuse to allow your emotions to be someone else's remote control. You ever notice how the people who try to provoke you the most are usually the ones who benefit when you lose control? The person who wants an argument, the person who wants to see you embarrassed, the person who wants to feel superior, the person who wants to prove you're unstable, weak, emotional, childish, dramatic. They push just enough, they poke just right, and the moment you react, they sit back like, "See, I knew it." But when you choose not to react, when you refuse to be moved, the dynamic flips. Suddenly, they have nothing to feed off, they can't escalate you, they can't pull you into their emotional storm. They lose their power, because their power never came from their strength, it came from your reaction. There is something unshakable about a person who does not get emotionally hijacked. A calm person in a chaotic environment is intimidating. It confuses people. It forces them to confront themselves. It exposes their intentions. Your calm becomes a mirror that shows who they really are and who you are not. Look at leaders, real leaders. They don't react to every challenge. They don't respond to every insult. They don't let pressure make them panic. Their composure is their command. They can see the situation from above, not from inside the emotional fog. That's how they make moves, not mistakes. Emotional reactivity usually comes from old wounds. Something in the moment reminds you of something from your past: disrespect, abandonment, rejection, unfairness. So you're not just reacting to this moment, you're reacting to every moment like it that came before. That's why the reaction feels so strong. That's why it hits so deep. But that also means the power isn't in the person who triggered you, it's in the unresolved emotion inside you. And when you understand that, the reaction becomes information instead of identity. It becomes something to notice, not something to act on. You start asking yourself questions like, why did this get to me? What am I afraid this situation means about me? What am I trying to protect? What am I trying to prove? And when you start asking those questions, you unlock something deeper than reaction. You unlock awareness. Awareness is how you reclaim control. You stop being pulled. You stop being pushed. You stop being moved by emotional currents that don't serve you. And slowly, you become the kind of person who moves with intention. You talk slower. You think clearer. You choose your response like you're choosing your future, because you are. People who master their emotions aren't emotionless. They just refuse to be ruled by them. They feel everything, but they respond to something deeper than the feeling. They respond to their truth, their direction, their purpose, their peace. Because the moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop letting the world dictate your emotional state, you become someone who is no longer controlled by circumstance. You become someone who controls their own reality. Understanding the trigger is where real growth starts. Because the trigger is not the problem, the trigger is the signal. It's the alarm, the flare, the spotlight pointing to something inside you that still needs healing. Most people spend their whole lives reacting to the trigger and never asking, why did this hit me so hard? They fight the outside situation, but never address the inside wound. And as long as the wound is still open, life will keep sending the same lesson over and over, through different people, different places, different arguments, different moments. Not because life is unfair, but because life keeps giving you chances to finally understand yourself. We think the trigger is about the person in front of us, the tone they used, the words they said, the way they acted, But the intensity of the reaction comes from something deeper, something older. That's why sometimes the smallest thing can make you feel the biggest emotion. It isn't about the moment. It's about what the moment touches. Maybe someone dismisses your opinion, and you feel that sting in your chest. That might not just be about the conversation. That might be connected to times you were ignored growing up. Times you felt invisible, times no one listened. The wound is old, the trigger is new. Maybe someone makes a joke that cuts too close, and suddenly you feel defensive, hurt, angry. That might not be about the joke. It might be about the insecurity you've been trying to outrun, the part of yourself you haven't made peace with yet, the part you haven't accepted. Maybe someone leaves you on read or pulls back or doesn't show up for you the way you hoped. And it hits you in a place that feels familiar. That might be abandonment or fear of not being enough. That might be you trying to protect yourself from a hurt you've felt before. Triggers are teachers. But you have to be willing to look at them instead of just acting on them. When you get triggered, instead of reacting outward, try turning inward. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? It might say you've been carrying something for too long. You haven't forgiven what happened before. You're still trying to prove something. You still want to be seen, heard, valued, held, validated, understood. The goal isn't to never get triggered. Triggers are part of being human. The goal is to understand the meaning behind the trigger so you can respond from awareness instead of pain. This is emotional intelligence, not the pretty version, not the version people post quotes about. The real version, the version where you have to sit with yourself and be honest about what hurts, where you have to acknowledge the parts of yourself that feel unprotected, where you learn to comfort those parts instead of exploding from them. When you understand your triggers, you stop blaming the world for how you feel. You stop saying, they made me mad or they hurt my feelings. Instead, you say, this touched something I need to work on, and that shift is powerful. Because the moment you take responsibility for your internal world, you take back your power to change it. And yes, it takes courage to look inside. It takes strength to face your own patterns. It takes honesty to admit that your reaction didn't come from the situation, it came from your pain. Most people avoid that work their whole lives. They stay reactive, they stay defensive, they stay stuck in cycles, and then they wonder why the same experiences keep repeating. But when you choose to understand your trigger, you start healing the wound it's connected to. The more you heal, the less the outside world can shake you. Things that used to set you off no longer have the same grip. You start moving with calm where you used to move with chaos. You start speaking with intention where you used to speak with emotion. You start responding like someone who knows themselves, truly knows themselves. And once you truly know yourself, no one can use you against you. That's why understanding the trigger is power. It's how you evolve from being controlled by your past to being guided by your awareness. It's how you turn reaction into reflection. It's how you learn to move from self-respect instead of self-defense. Because when the trigger shows up, it's not asking you to explode, it's asking you to listen. Choosing your response instead of reacting is the difference between living intentionally and living on autopilot. A reaction is fast, it's impulsive, it's emotional, it comes from the moment, from the pressure, from the heat. But a response is chosen. A response is deliberate. A response is you stepping into your power and saying, I move with purpose, not with impulse. Most people don't know the difference. They feel something and they act on it right away. They say the first words that hit their tongue. They make decisions based on temporary emotion. They defend themselves even when there is nothing to defend. And then later, once the emotion settles, they're left with the aftermath. Regret, misunderstandings, broken trust, silence where connection used to live, distance where closeness was. We've all been there. Those moments where you said something real sharp because you felt hurt, or where you walked away too fast because something didn't go the way you expected, or where you reacted to protect yourself, even though no one was attacking you in that moment, it was just your fear speaking. When you live in reaction mode, your emotions become the driver and you become the passenger. You get taken wherever the wave goes. Choosing your response means taking your seat back behind the wheel. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, I need time to think. Not because you're avoiding anything, not because you're scared of the conversation, but because you understand that clarity does not come from chaos. When your emotions are loud, your judgment is quiet. When you slow down, your wisdom gets a chance to speak. There's maturity in that. It's a quiet type of strength, the kind that makes your presence feel grounded, steady, intentional. The kind that makes people listen when you talk, because they know you didn't just speak to speak, you meant every word. Think about arguments. Most arguments don't start because of the actual issue. They start because one person reacted emotionally and the other reacted to that reaction. Suddenly, it's not even about the problem anymore. It's about tone, pride, defensiveness, ego. And now you're both fighting a battle that didn't even exist 5 minutes ago. But when you choose your response, you step out of that cycle. You can say, I hear you. Let me process this. I'll come back when I can speak clearly. And that changes everything. That's not avoiding conflict, that's approaching conflict with intention. Even with yourself, choosing your response matters. Sometimes the reaction is self-directed. You make a mistake and your reaction is to beat yourself up. Call yourself names, tear yourself down, but a response looks different. A response sounds like, I messed up. Let me understand why. Let me learn from this instead of hurting myself over it. You stop punishing yourself and start guiding yourself. Choosing your response also protects your relationships. It creates trust. It creates safety. When people know you don't just explode when things get emotional, they feel safe opening up to you. They feel safe being honest. They feel safe being human. And that's how real connection is built. This is what separates emotional maturity from emotional chaos. The ability to hold space between the feeling and the action. The ability to let your emotions speak, but not let it be the one who decides what you do next. It doesn't mean you suppress what you feel. It means you express it with clarity instead of chaos. It means you understand that what you say, how you say it, and when you say it matters just as much as what you feel. It means you respect your emotions enough to not let them become weapons. You learn to speak from the part of you that is grounded, the part of you that knows who you are, the part of you that wants peace more than ego validation. And in that, you become a different kind of person, one who cannot be thrown off balance by every situation, one who responds with awareness, patience, self-respect, one who chooses their moves like they are building something bigger than the moment. Because you're building your character, your future, your relationships, your identity, your peace. Choosing your response is choosing yourself. Protecting your peace is not some cliché phrase, it's survival. It's recognizing that your mind, your heart, your inner world are not public spaces for everyone to walk through with muddy shoes. Your peace is the foundation you build your life on. And if the foundation is constantly shaken, everything else becomes unstable. You can have money, friends, followers, opportunities, but without peace, none of it feels like anything. Peace is the quiet inside you that doesn't get shaken when the world makes noise. But here's the reality. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional energy. Some people feed off chaos. Some people create conflict just to feel something. Some people know exactly what to say to pull you off center because they feel powerful when you're not grounded. And if you keep giving your energy to every situation that demands it, you will be drained before you even get to the things that actually matter to you. Protecting your peace means learning to say, not everything gets a reaction from me. It means walking away from pointless conversations. It means not explaining yourself to people who don't listen. It means refusing to argue with someone who only wants to win, not understand. Peace is not passive. Peace is active. Peace is maintained. Sometimes that means being selective about who gets close to you. Not everyone with a smile has good intentions. Not everyone who calls you bro or sis cares about your growth. Some people like the version of you that was tired, reactive, insecure, because that version is easier to control. When you start protecting your peace, some people will say you've changed. They'll say you're distant. They'll say you're acting different, and they're right. You are, because peace changed you, growth changed you, healing changed you, and not everybody is supposed to come with you into the life you're building. Protecting your peace also means recognizing when someone is baiting you into emotional chaos. They know exactly what to say to set you off. They touch the oldest bruise, they play the same game, and maybe in the past you fell for it. You reacted, you yelled, you fought to be heard, you fought to be right, but not anymore. Now you see the pattern. Now you understand the trap. Now you stay calm not because you're weak, but because you've learned that peace is priceless and reacting is expensive. There is a specific kind of power in not letting someone else's energy dictate your mood. When the environment is loud but you stay composed, that's strength. When someone tries to provoke you and you don't move, that's discipline. Your calm becomes your armor, your silence becomes your filter. Your stillness becomes your protection. And yes, protecting your peace sometimes means disappointing people. It means saying no when you used to say yes just to keep the peace externally, even while you were burning inside. It means stepping back from relationships that drain you. It means not chasing people who walk away. It means not forcing yourself to hold conversations that feel heavy just to avoid conflict. You learn that distance can be healing. Silence can be self-care. Disengaging can be a form of respect for yourself. Your peace is how you show up in the world, and when you protect it, you show up clearer, stronger, more grounded. Your decisions are sharper, your vision becomes clearer, your intuition becomes louder. You start to move with intention, not reaction. You start to live from your highest self instead of your wounded self. The more you protect your peace, the more life begins to align. You attract different people, calmer, more supportive, more authentic. You make different decisions, ones that are rooted in clarity instead of survival. You start feeling safe within yourself, and that's the real goal. Not being unbothered because you don't care, but being unmovable because you do care about yourself, about your future, about your mental and emotional freedom. Protect your peace like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Setting boundaries doesn't require you to raise your voice, defend yourself, or explain your worth to anyone. A boundary is not about convincing someone to respect you, it's about respecting yourself enough to state what you will and won't accept. The strength of a boundary isn't in how loud you say it. It's in how consistently you stand on it. Real boundaries are quiet, clear, firm. They don't need performance. They don't need debate. They don't need approval. They just need you. Most of us learn to argue our boundaries, to justify them, to apologize for them, to try to make other people comfortable with what we need. But the moment you start explaining your boundary excessively, it stops being a boundary and becomes a negotiation, and your peace is not up for negotiation. You don't have to prove anything when you say, "I'm not okay with that." You don't owe long paragraphs. You don't need to convince someone to agree. You don't need a dramatic exit or a loud announcement. You just speak your boundary with calm, and then you act in alignment with it. That's the real part, the alignment. Anyone can say a boundary, but what matters is whether you enforce it when the moment comes. If someone crosses it and you stay silent, you didn't actually set a boundary, you just had a thought. A boundary is an action. A boundary is a choice you live by. People often avoid boundaries because they're afraid someone will leave. And honestly, sometimes someone will, but that's the point. Boundaries reveal who is meant to stay in your life and who is only there because they benefited from your lack of them. When you start valuing yourself, anyone who is comfortable with your self-neglect will feel uncomfortable. That discomfort isn't a loss, it's a filter. Boundaries also don't need to be aggressive. You don't have to match someone's energy when they get loud or disrespectful. You don't have to prove you're strong. Your strength is in your clarity. You can simply say, "I'm not available for this. I don't accept being spoken to like that. I'm stepping away now. That doesn't work for me." Calm, direct, solid. Because the moment you get emotionally reactive, the focus shifts. Now the conversation becomes about how you said it instead of what you meant. They'll say you're overreacting. They'll say you're being dramatic. They'll call you sensitive. They'll redirect the whole situation to avoid accountability. But when you say your boundary in a voice that's steady, grounded, certain, there is nowhere for them to run. There is no distraction. There is no emotional chaos to hide behind. It becomes clear, simple, honest. Sometimes a boundary is just distance. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to explain why your presence has changed. You just shift your energy. You stop showing up where you feel drained. You stop participating in conversations that feel heavy. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to be helped. You stop giving your loyalty to situations that show you they're temporary. Distance is a language, and the people who are meant for you will understand it intuitively. They'll either meet you where you are or they'll fade out on their own. Both outcomes are protection. And here's something many people never realize: boundaries make love stronger, not weaker. When there are healthy boundaries, there is clarity, there is safety, there is trust. People know what is okay and what isn't. They know how to show up. They know how to love you in a way that doesn't break you. Without boundaries, love turns into resentment. Support turns into sacrifice. Care turns into self-abandonment. And eventually, you lose yourself trying to keep someone else comfortable. You deserve to exist in relationships where your needs are not viewed as demands, where your feelings are not treated like inconveniences, where your presence is not taken for granted. That starts with your boundaries, because boundaries say, I matter here too. My peace matters. My emotional well-being matters. My energy is valuable. My heart is not a place where anyone can just walk freely. This is the quiet power of someone who finally decided to stop betraying themselves. You don't have to explain your boundaries. You only have to live them. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every situation, not every comment, not every piece of drama needs your presence. The more you grow, the more you realize that your attention is a currency. Whatever you give it to, you are investing in, and some things are simply not worth the investment. Some situations are noise loud but empty. Some conversations are traps designed to pull you into emotional drains. Some people speak only to provoke, not to connect. You don't owe your energy to any of that. You get to choose where your focus goes. A lot of life changes when you stop trying to respond to everything. When you stop needing to correct every misunderstanding, when you stop needing to defend yourself in every conversation, when you understand that peace is worth more than being right, you don't have to attend every argument. You don't have to match anyone's chaos. You don't have to prove your truth to those who are committed to misunderstanding it. There is power in letting things go. There is strength in walking away without emotional fireworks. There is wisdom in saying, "This is not worth my spirit." Think about how many times you drained yourself over something that didn't matter just a few days later. That argument you replayed in your head. That comment you let get under your skin. That situation you tried to fix even when it was already done. How much time did you lose in the cycle of thinking about it, talking about it, reacting to it? Time you could have used to build yourself, to rest, to grow, to heal, to move forward. Your attention is sacred, and once you start treating it that way, everything around you begins to shift. There will always be people who try to pull you into unnecessary battles. Some people speak with the intention of sparking conflict, because conflict distracts them from their own pain. Some people want to see you emotional, because they don't know how to handle someone who is grounded. Some people feel powerful only when you lose your composure, but you don't have to go where they're trying to lead you. You can look at the situation, feel the pull, and still choose not to step in. That's not avoiding. That's self-respect. When you choose not to give attention to something, you are not saying it didn't happen or that it didn't matter. You are saying it is not worth your peace. You are saying, I'm not going to let this moment control me. You are saying, I have something bigger to protect. And the bigger thing is you, your growth, your calm, your vision, your future. You start learning to ask yourself, does this deserve my time? Does this deserve my emotional effort? Does this help me grow? Does this move me forward? Does this align with the person I am becoming? If the answer is no, then you let it pass, not with resentment, not with anger, just with clarity. You become selective with your responses. You become intentional with your emotions. You don't respond to disrespect with more disrespect, you respond with distance. You don't respond to manipulation with explanation, you respond with boundaries. You don't respond to gossip with gossip, you respond with silence. Your presence becomes rare, and what is rare becomes valuable. There is a quiet confidence in a person who doesn't react to everything. The type of confidence that comes from knowing you have nothing to prove. The type of strength that comes from being rooted in your own identity. When someone like that speaks, people listen because they know the words aren't coming from ego. They're coming from intention, they're coming from clarity. Not everything needs your attention because not everything is on your level. Not everything is meant for you. Not every moment is worth remembering. And the moment you stop letting the world pull you in every direction, you start moving your life in one direction forward. This is how you conserve your power. This is how you protect your energy. This is how you stay focused on what matters. You learn to let the small things stay small. You learn to let the noise remain noise. You learn to walk past what no longer deserves access to your inner world. Because your attention is the doorway to your peace, and not everyone gets to walk through. Your triggers are not just reactions. They are signals, messages, indicators pointing to something inside you that wants to be healed. When someone says something and it hits you harder than it should, that moment isn't just about them. It's showing you something about yourself. It's revealing where the wound is. And the truth is, most people spend their whole lives reacting to their triggers instead of understanding them. They defend them, they justify them, they build personalities around them, but the ones who grow, the ones who evolve, learn to study them. Think about the last time something made you angry or made you shut down. Go back to that moment, not to beat yourself up, but to understand it. Why did it hit so deep? Why did that comment feel like an attack? Why did that situation bring tension to your chest? These questions are uncomfortable, but they're the doorway to self-mastery. Sometimes the trigger isn't even about the present moment. It's the echo of something older, a voice from your past, a memory tied to someone who hurt you, a belief you carry about your worth. And when you react without understanding, you give that old wound the power to run your life today. But when you pause, when you sit with the trigger instead of exploding from it, you begin to take your power back. You start seeing the difference between the moment and the memory, between what happened and what it reminded you of. That awareness is where transformation begins. A trigger says, look here, there's something you still haven't healed. And instead of reacting outward, you learn to reflect inward. This doesn't mean letting people disrespect you. It means understanding the reaction before you decide the response. Because when you understand yourself, nobody can control you with your own emotions. People can throw words, situations, disrespect, but if you know your wounds, if you've taken the time to heal, they can't move you the way they used to. Healing doesn't come from suppressing reactions. Healing comes from being honest about where the reaction came from. Maybe it came from not feeling heard as a child. Maybe it came from being abandoned. Maybe it came from always having to defend yourself. Maybe it came from being betrayed by someone you trusted. These experiences shape how we react, but they don't have to control how we respond. And the moment you recognize that, you begin to reclaim your emotional freedom. You start speaking to yourself differently. I'm not angry, I'm hurt. I'm not insecure, I'm remembering something painful. I'm not overwhelmed, I'm trying to protect myself. That level of honesty is where real strength is born. It's easy to react. It's harder to reflect. But reflection is where the growth is. It's where the past stops running your present. It's where you learn to be intentional instead of impulsive. And there is a quiet strength in the person who can feel a trigger rising and stay present enough to breathe through it. To say, I know what this is. I've felt this before, but this time I'm choosing differently. That choice changes everything. Because now the world doesn't get to dictate how you move. Your ego doesn't get to hijack your reactions. Your wounds don't get to speak for you. You speak for you, and healing doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's messy, sometimes you'll fall back into old reactions. But every time you pause, every time you reflect instead of erupt, you are rewiring your emotional world. You are breaking old patterns. You are building new strength. Your triggers are your teachers. They are guiding you back to the parts of yourself that still need love, patience, and understanding. And when you give yourself that, something beautiful happens inside you. You stop reacting to life, you start responding to it, and that is emotional freedom. Calm is contagious. The energy you carry doesn't just stay with you, it radiates, it spreads, it affects everyone around you. When you remain grounded in chaos, when you refuse to let anger or fear dictate your movements, people notice. It's subtle at first. They may not even name it, but they feel it. The way you carry yourself, the way you pause instead of reacting, the way you choose your words carefully instead of letting them cut, it changes the energy in the room. It changes how people act. It changes what people expect from you. Think about a time when someone stayed calm in a moment where everyone else was losing it. Maybe it was a leader, maybe a friend, maybe even yourself. That calmness shifted everything. People stopped yelling. People stopped pushing. People started listening. Calm isn't weak. Calm isn't indifference. Calm is power. Calm is mastery. Calm is a silent statement that says, I am in control. I will not be moved by chaos. I will not hand my energy away. When you remain calm, people who thrive on drama lose interest. The ones who try to provoke you, who want to see you reactive, who live off your emotional explosions, they stop. Because they realize you cannot be controlled. They realize your peace is not negotiable. They realize that you are bigger than their games, and in that, you become unshakable. Your calm also attracts the right people, the ones who respect emotional stability, the ones who value maturity, the ones who recognize strength without having to test it. Your calm becomes a magnet for wisdom, for clarity, for relationships that build rather than drain. And those are the people who help you rise instead of fall, who support instead of sabotage, who grow with you instead of dragging you down. Calm is not something that comes naturally to most of us. It is practiced. It is cultivated. It is a muscle you strengthen over time. Every moment you choose to pause instead of explode. Every moment you choose to respond instead of react. Every moment you protect your peace instead of giving it away, you are building that muscle. And the stronger it gets, the more unshakable you become, and the more your calm spreads to everyone around you. Even in conflict, calm changes the game. When someone expects a fight and you stay grounded, you shift the dynamic. Their words lose power, their anger loses weight. Your presence becomes a stabilizing force. Calm doesn't just influence others, it influences the outcome. Calm is strategy. Calm is wisdom in motion. Calm is the quiet power that moves mountains without shouting. And your calm also teaches a lesson silently. It teaches that not everything needs an immediate reaction, that you can feel deeply and still choose wisely. That peace is more valuable than ego. That strength isn't loud, it's steady. That power isn't shown through aggression, it's shown through control. People remember that. They respect that. They feel it. Your calm becomes a ripple effect. One ripple reaches another. One choice reaches another. One moment of composure shifts the energy of everything around it. Your calm becomes a form of protection. Protection for yourself. Protection for your energy. Protection for your relationships. Protection for the life you're building. When chaos tries to intrude, your calm acts as a buffer. It keeps the noise outside while you maintain focus on what matters inside. And the more you practice it, the easier it becomes to remain centered no matter the storm. The world can throw anything at you: insults, criticism, betrayal, chaos, provocation. But the person who has learned to stay calm carries an unshakable power. Nothing outside can take away what is anchored inside, and the beauty of it is your calm doesn't just protect you, it transforms everything around you. People start responding to your energy instead of trying to control it. Situations start resolving instead of escalating. Life itself becomes a little quieter, a little clearer, a little more aligned with the peace you choose to carry. Calm is contagious. Your choice to stay composed doesn't just elevate you, it elevates everyone around you. It turns chaos into clarity, reaction into reflection, conflict into understanding, energy into wisdom, and in that, your power becomes undeniable, unstoppable, and inspiring. There is immeasurable power in being the person who can feel deeply and still choose how to respond. Control is not about being emotionless. It is about being emotionally intentional. The next time your emotions start to rise, remember, you don't have to react. You have the right to pause. You have the strength to choose. And that choice, that quiet, steady choice, is where your true power lies.